So we've got another one of those yellow formation zones right overhead, all thanks to a weak tropical disturbance, or I should say, more homegrown disturbance, hanging out at the very tail end of a front that is draped pretty much northwest to southeast over interior portions of our beautiful Sunshine State. Let's take you over to the water vapor. This is a very interesting setup, and to tell you the truth, much of this hurricane season, especially things closer to home, have been pretty interesting. And the reason I want to talk about what's going on here is because this pretty much sums up the mixed bag approach that we're going to dabble with as we go through October and then the final 30 days of the Atlantic hurricane season of 2025. This is kind of a return to form. I like to look at the hurricane season in separate phases. June is usually characterized by homegrown, we call it slop. You don't typically see too many well organized, let alone aggressively developing hurricanes during the month of June. You typically see, kind of reminiscent of what we saw with Andrea and Barry down in the Bay of Campeche, your low to mid grade tropical storms that usually plop off the United States coast. Tail end of a front washes out over open water. Some of the fragments begin to spin, and then we're off to the races. We get a named storm. As we get deeper into the fall season, fall kind of goes head to head against the hurricane season. We're trying to hold on to some of the built up heat down over the equator, so we do still have some lingering tropical waves that try to meander through the pattern across the deep tropics. But as our frontal systems start to get a little more agitated coming off the eastern United States, especially when we have such warm water built up off our west and eastern shores, both in the Gulf and the Atlantic, you get hybrid setups like this, where the front will linger, marinate over open water, and then start to try to take on tropical characteristics since they still have the ability to do so. You look at the winds down there off the coast of West Palm and Miami, we're getting a little breezy, that's for sure. We're also working hand in hand with high pressure that is dug in over the mid-Atlantic, the eastern seaboard of the U.S. for our neighbors to the north. And that's what's keeping this thing tucked right up against the Gulf Stream current up our east coast, and it's also amplifying the winds that we're getting out of the east, which is why we have such fast-moving showers and very, very isolated thunderstorms that are occurring throughout the day today. But the main thing I want to talk about, on top of the potential for some low-end development, models are not very confident. We will probably see some counterclockwise turning in the winds, and regardless, we're going to see some very hefty and meaty rainfall totals as we go through Friday and Saturday, slowly trying to clear things out on Sunday. June, we get the homegrown systems. July and maybe the first 2 weeks of August, we typically go into that lull. That's when things are fairly quiet. We call it the Saharan dust portion of the season, Sahara air season, because that's when, thanks to the summertime really ramping up through the tropics to include over land in Africa, you get a heat low that forms up. You get that turning in your wind flow in the low to mid levels of your environment over Africa. And as we start to see those thunderstorms percolating over the actual continent, over the desert area, those tend to kick up dust. I saw this all the time when I was back in Air Force weather forecasting for the desert Southwest. You get a good enough thunderstorm to cook off, and next thing you know, you've got blowing sand, blowing dust, or even haboobs, those full-on dust storms. You take those dust swells and you act together with that thermal low helping to stir the air around, it kicks it out over open water, and then our easterly trade winds that are there across the Atlantic year-round continue to carry it further west, and that'll usually help to suppress tropical activity, usually. Then, as we get through the second half of August, September, and maybe the first 2 or so weeks of October, we call it Cabo Verde season. That's when the waves are really coming off. We don't have too strong of fronts coming off the United States, and as a result, we turn our attention to the deep tropics. Now we're at the point where we're going to start to see signals left and right. This is what we have close to home, but if I show you what's out there right now in terms of our tropical probabilities, I have the map zoomed out pretty far here. I want you to notice that we have multiple signals kind of lighting up out there. We have one growing signal off the southeast coast over the Bahamas, another gyre-like signal, Central American gyre, maybe making a return next week over Central America there near the Yucatan Peninsula, Belize, and the Western Caribbean. And then notice that tropical wave that's out there in the Atlantic. That's our other highlighted feature. So we have the 1, then we have the 2, and then we've got 3. percolating. And we're going to be doing battle with the Eastern Pacific as well. So this is in question. We may see another yellow blip form here very soon from National Hurricane Center. It looks like there is another weak attempt at something trying to meander through the pattern down here near the Turks and Caicos. And then we have two individual tropical waves, one here that's already on the board, and then another one back behind this one we'll have to watch trying to come off the coast of Africa. And this is what I mean by mixed bag. You look at this graphic here, and it looks like I just drew kind of like a football play. These are all the players that are going to run this way, hook that way, fake out this way, and so on and so forth. That's what the rest of the hurricane season is going to look like. And to tell you the truth, looking at our velocity potential in terms of where our lift and our sinking will be focused from the Gulf, the Caribbean, through the Atlantic, we have some of our most favorable phasing. Excuse me, my voice is still kind of back and forth. We have some of our most favorable phasing actually coming through during the meaty portions, the midsections of October towards Halloween, and then a rebounding of those favorable conditions once again as we get into November. So I really do think this could be the wild card month, the grand finale to really show what the 2025 hurricane season has to offer before we really say bon voyage as we approach Thanksgiving next month.